Hey, Richard. Today I wanted to discuss a little bit about roadside inspections, and I'm doing a training course on hours of service. And this course is going to the managers of contractors, AOs and BCs, and to give them a better understanding of the issues that drivers have during roadside. So I did a video in the course where a lot of the issues were drivers didn't know how to certify their logs. They didn't know how to transfer the logs. They didn't know how to take the ELD off of a mount and hand it outside of the commercial vehicle to the officer and all that.
Yep.
So, so you have in your previous experience been that officer, and can you sort of explain, like, to a manager that when you're approaching a truck, and we're just focused on our service, I know you were covering a whole bunch of stuff during a roadside, but just what were the questions and what was sort of the discussion and what were you trying to get after with the ELD?
Sure. So my first focus on the ELD itself was, is it set up correctly in the vehicle? Is it mounted? Can they take it down and provide it to me? And I can read it from the roadside. The next thing that I'm concerned with is who's logged into it.
True. I didn't think about that. Okay.
That's the very first thing. Once I've got it in my hand, is I compare the CDL to the name on the cover or on the profile. And once I've documented that that's the right person, then I will go into getting it shipped through what the feds call ERODs,
Okay.
for electronic records of duty. And that's what we call telematics. And when that comes over, then I would first be concerned with, was what I saw on the CDL and what I saw on the profile, does it now match what was sent to me?
Okay.
Because it's a pretty common thing that what gets sent to you isn't what you were looking for, and a lot of officers might overlook it, but it's something that they really try to watch for. The easy things that officers look for and determine, what am I gonna, how hard am I gonna dig, is all of the required information there. So is the driver's CDL number in there? Is the profile set up correctly? Is it in compliance with 395? The next thing that I would look for is, did they mark the tractor number, the trailer number, and the commodity, BOL number or commodity? Mm-hmm. And then after that, what I want to know is, are there 8 days? Do I have 8 days of logs, or did I get sent 36 hours?
Okay.
Once I know that I've got 8 days, the next question I'm going to ask the driver is, do you have 8 days of blank log pages? And once I know all those are set up, then I would go back and I would begin to look at the hours of service, compare it with things like license plate reader tags. So, if you're going through Atlanta, Georgia, there's probably 20 license plate readers through there. And if I had access to them and I see a day that you were there, I would look for those to see if those timestamps match what's in the log. And I would also look at the BOL to see if it matches what's in the log.
Okay.
One of the bigger things that everybody's looking for is PC. So if there's no PC, that kind of turns that, are they using PC incorrectly, off in their mind.
Right.
So it's not that you can't use PC, there's anything wrong with it, but as soon as you see it, that makes you dig. Was it used properly? Did it advance the load or the company objective in any way?
Right.
Then ERODS is set up to show violations for hours of service. So did they meet their 30-minute break within the 8 hours? Are they over their 11 and 14 or 70? And then you go back and you just do those timestamps for every single day. And that's pretty much the gist of what you're looking for when you're running logs. Does that make sense the way I'm explaining it?
Yeah. So the way that I'm interpreting it is, number one thing that you're looking at is everything set up correctly. Number one, from the administration of the ELD, and the correct carrier name, the correct driver name, the correct driver's license. The person that is actually driving is the correct driver that the logs are being handed to the office, transferred to the officer. And then you're looking at, do they have the required, um, blank logs? I assume that you could also ask questions, because I noticed under the line haul hours of service that, like, a lot of missing. The driver could not produce the manual for the ELD. So that could be a question that is asked on a roadside going, let me see the manual. It's in the ELD, but the drivers can never find it in the ELD. So I always say, put it in the truck binder, to say, oh, it's right here, officer, right there. So,
Correct.
and I didn't realize until you just said it that the officer on the side of the road has tools in the toolbox, like license plate readers and things like that, to go, oh, I can verify where you've been and what's going on and things like that. So obviously, be upfront about all of that is the key to surviving a roadside on that.
Right. And I did leave something out there. One of the things that I left out was because I was one of the first people training others on how to do ELD, how to review an ELD. So I spent a lot of time learning each platform, and I knew that all of the required documents, from the instructions on how to operate it, or a malfunction description of operations there, I knew all that was in the ELD. Most officers, though, ask for that stuff. And I apologize, I forgot to bring that up, because if it wasn't in the ELD, then I would go back and ask. But really what should happen is the officer should be asking for that, just like they do for the 8 days of logs.
Right. Okay. And that's really, I think, what the point I'm trying to avoid, basic violations, is knowing that everything's correct in the ELD first, making sure that the driver information is correct in the ELD, giving them the driver the documents and access to them to give to an officer, having the blank logbook readily available, because I think you've told me in the past that one of the things that's aggravating in roadside is if you ask for a blank logbook and the driver starts going, I know it's in here somewhere, and then they start the hunt. And,
Right.
and it's you've told me in the past that's the difference between a much more positive outcome roadside than a negative outcome roadside, because the driver seems unorganized, they don't know where their stuff is, and things like that. Correct?
Correct. And there's a mindset to that. Inspectors are trying to make their widgets. So they want to create as many inspections as they can in a day. And while they're looking for violations, what happens when everything's in order and the driver's handing everything off to the officer as they should, is that we know I don't have to settle in for a long winter's nap on this inspection.
Right.
Because they're providing it. Now, if you're going to make me settle in for a long winter's nap, we're going to really look at this log. Everything that we do to delay it. And one of the things that I didn't bring up, one of the questions I would always ask is, do you have a co-driver? And the reason I'm asking that question is threefold. One is what we call ghost drivers. It's not with them at the time, but there's one in the log. Or the co-driver's not in the log, which is also a violation. It's a general form and manner violation of 395.8, and that one is 100% of the time. So I'm asking for your log. Do you have a co-driver today? And you want to be able to have that co-driver's documents without waking the co-driver up.
Correct.
It's not as important with hours of service because, well, it's just not as important with hours of service because you don't always do the co-driver's log along with the driver. You
Right.
only do that when there's a problem with the driver.
Right. And then we've had some situations with team drivers that we will have like a husband and wife, and the husband drives on both logs, under that, which is obviously something that during a roadside inspection, an officer would be trying to ascertain is, okay, when did the other person drive on that? So I think this is, hopefully for the managers who are watching this, it's the key to everything on this is organization, having the right information in the system it's supposed to be, and actually sitting down towards, during your onboarding process and your ongoing training to practice this with the drivers. It's like, this is how you take the tablet off the RAM mount. I know it seems silly that you've got to train a human being on how to do that, but they can be tricky, and they get, we all get nervous. Anybody would get nervous if law enforcement pulls you over, and say, okay, let's practice on taking it off the RAM mount. This is how you transfer logs. Also, this happened to me just last week. Managers, make sure you understand how to transfer the logs from the administration dashboard. I saved a driver who called me in a panic, Richard, that said, I don't know how to do this. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do it. I said, what's the code? Put the code in, and I had the logs transferred. That driver received a clean inspection. Probably shouldn't have, because he still didn't know how to transfer the logs, but that's what happened that day. But managers need to know how to do that process.
There is a violation in 395.15 for the driver not being trained.
Yeah.
How to operate it. And if the driver can't do it, a lot of people will feel as though the officer should be able to do it. And in a lot of cases, that is a possibility. It really is. However, I believe there's 131 providers with limitless numbers of platforms.
Right.
And there's just no way an officer, you might find one who you hand him a motive platform and he knows how to operate every single one of them. Well, there's a reason for that. If
Right.
you hand them, say, ground cloud, you're going to have a little bit more trouble with them knowing how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's really the issue to it. There is, at the end of the day, the officer is looking to the operator of the commercial vehicle to know how to use their own stuff. And that's the whole thing of this training is it really comes down to the majority of the violations are due to the driver does not know how to use a computer that's in their truck. So anyway,
there's a little bit of this that is really important here. When a driver said to me, what's your address or what's your number, and they're already sending me the log, I'm just as happy as I could possibly be.
I bet that made it a lot easier.
So I know that they're trained, and a lot of worry is gone right there. It's like, I can turn this and burn it.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks for going over that with me. I think this will be very helpful for them to understand this part of surviving a roadside inspection. And I appreciate your time.
Thanks for calling. We'll talk to you soon.